Morning. Today they're slurrying our streets here in the neighborhood. They're adding a layer of protection to the asphalt because it had been stripped away during the winter with the snow that we've had. The blades of the snowplow come by and it changes the texture of the street and damages it for the rest of the summer. So this is a regular process, not annual, but pretty regular. And it really reminded me of our own lives, our own efforts at times to slurry over our scars, the scars of the experiences we've had in our lives and the pain that we've experienced, and to cover them up and to make like nothing happened. It's just easier sometimes to cope that way. But then I think of Christ, who came to the apostles after the crucifixion and stood there in the upper room among his friends and said, "Look, put your fingers in the holes in my hands and your hand in the gash in my side and see the effects of love." He'd say, "Love, but the soldiers did that." No, but actually Christ weathered that storm, went through that pain for deep love. So the scars become a sign of love. For us, it's hard to believe in love sometimes. And the scars that we possess, it's like the last thing we want to do is admit that we opened ourselves enough and were vulnerable enough to feel pain. But here stands before us the divine, who says to us, "I'm not protecting myself from the times when I'm hurt by you." I mean, this amazing love of God that you and I, as little tiny human beings, could actually impact the heart of God. That God is willing to take the scars, the pain, because the love is so important. Jesus doesn't say, "Hey, it wasn't a big deal," or I'll heal over it," or "Look, hey, I rose anyway, so no problem, I'm impervious to what you might do in the future." There's none of that. The vulnerability that God shows by standing in front of the apostles and saying, "I love you so much that I'm willing to expose myself to pain on your behalf." We don't often think of that exchange that takes place in our relationship with God. Humanly, we don't want to do that, right? A lot of times it's, "I'm done then. Okay, I'm just not going to ever allow myself to get that deep in love to where I can be that deeply injured." And yet God does not draw a line in the sand and say, "No, I'm not going any further." The divine is divine because God is way beyond the limits that we experience. But God stands before us, holding open his hands and side, saying, "This is just not going to be an obstacle. My love for you is going to be far beyond the limits of what others will do for you." And at times when you feel like you just want to clam up and just not be vulnerable anymore, I think the example of Christ before the apostles, and also before you and me, standing there before you and me saying, "Yes, it hurts to love you, but there's nothing that's going to want to make me stop." Scars can also be a sign of great love.